Hey y'all, my name is Mark, and I'm going to be talking about how not to give up, or just really helping reframe some things that we think about on a daily. Like, I think it's something that we could really use and really like take the time to understand in terms of life. For instance, life is just always going to be filled with suffering. Life is always going to life. You're always going to go through things essentially, and I feel as if, I have been fortunate enough to be blessed with a mind that can understand a complex series of thoughts. In a world that tries to bog you down and try to like bring down that wavelength, it makes you second guess. It makes you question whether or not like your thoughts are valid, your feelings are valid. It makes you question that. And one of the biggest questions I've always had to ask is like, how can a thought be wrong? Like you had the thought for a reason. You know what I'm trying to say? And I'm not referring to anything extreme that affects other people's lives. I really just mean like the thoughts in pertaining to how you feel and where you should go in life, and just thoughts that help guide you, feelings that help guide you. And I want to take a minute to share a little bit of this story that I kind of like felt like would be really impactful. Um, so the other day, me and my sister were going out, and we were coming up from the train station, and we saw a woman holding a map, and she was just essentially like looking pretty lost. Like she was just like, "What do I do? Where do I go?" And as we were walking by, she stopped us and she asked, "Can you help me? I'm trying to get to this place here." So I took her map, pointed her to which train she needed to take, and I even walked her to the train that she needed to take. She ended up thanking me and saying, "Oh my God, I really appreciate you. I would have used my phone or something of the sort, but I don't understand how to use a phone. I'm too old." And as I listened to her, I understood where she was coming from, because sometimes age does play a role in how you kind of like feel about things in life. But I took it upon myself to challenge her and let her know, like, hey, like, that's a limiting belief. And she's like, "That's a limiting what?" Like, she was so a limiting what? And I explained it to her. It's a limiting belief. It's a thought that stops you from doing something and essentially limits you when it's not necessarily true. Because your age doesn't determine if you could literally learn how to use a cellular device. You're choosing that. It's a choice. And she was taken back and shocked. She was just like, I'm whoa, And I had to explain to her. I said, "Okay, let me stop you right there," right? Because she had a rebuttal. And I asked her, "What's the difference between a student and a master?" And she goes, "I don't know, tell me." And I say to her, "The difference between a student and a master is that the master has failed 1,000 times, while the student typically has given up after one try." And she goes, "Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying." And I said, "Yeah." And this kind of leads to like a second point of mine, which is like, what's your relationship like with failure, right? Because in life, you're going to fail. You're going to experience that. And a lot of people overlook that relationship with failure. The same way we overlook the relationship with discipline. We overlook the relationship with empathy. We overlook the relationship that we have with discipline and focus. We don't necessarily acknowledge our relationships with these things that are so important for us, especially like things like grace, forgiveness, self-awareness, and just really acknowledging who we are as people. And it just goes back to to go back to my original point of like, what's your relationship with failure like? A lot of people look at failure as like this thing that ultimately defines them. Like, oh, if I, like for instance, in her case, if I open up my phone and I look at an app and I don't know what's going on, it means that I'm dumb. It means that I'm stupid, and I should essentially just stay away from it, stay clear from it. It's bad. I don't understand it. I won't try it. But that's so problematic because, one, as you're trying to do something new, you're essentially, excuse me, I had a protein shake earlier. As you're trying to do something new, you're not focused on the thing that you need to learn. You're more so criticizing yourself as you're being exposed to this new thing, which in itself holds you back. You let your failures define you instead of you looking at it as progress. You need to fail in almost about anything that you start in order to get better at it. And that is how life works. You have to fail at a granular level in order to be great at a granular level. And this goes for relationships. This goes for friendships. This goes for anything pertaining to you pursuing something new or going after what it is that you want. Life is a long journey. And in that journey, you're going to trip, you're going to fall, you're going to scrape your knee, you're going to mess up, you're going to pick up something, and you're going to feel like it's too hot and you might drop it. But you got to pick it right back up. You got to pick it right back up. And in that moment, I essentially just said to her, you know, don't let your age stop you from learning how to use your phone. I looked her dead in her eye and I said that. It doesn't matter if she's an old woman. I still felt that she could also use that advice to grow. Because age doesn't determine your level of wisdom or your level of intelligence. That was a lesson that I had to learn in my life. I always felt like because someone was older than me, it meant that they were smarter than me. And then that just, as I grew up, I kind of learned that really is just not the truth. That's so far from the truth. That's so far from the case. Age really doesn't determine how smart you are. Sometimes it could be an indicator of whether or not a person would have wisdom, I guess. But it really just depends on how much work that individual has done. And we're all smart in different areas as well. But at the end of that conversation, she literally was just like, you know what? I'm going to listen to you. And I'm going to learn how to use that phone. And it just goes to show that we, as human beings, no matter the age, no matter the difference, no matter the sex, we could always turn to another person and help them and support them where we can. Which is why I'm also making this video. I'm here to help enlighten and spiritually nurture and grow with you guys, with what I know. This is me putting out my authentic self and what I've learned in this life. And in this topic of this video, in just terms of not giving up, you have to just know that part of not giving up is also understanding and having a firm belief in your capabilities, you know, and just knowing what you can do. A lot of us tend to stress out and they say, oh man, like I'm going through this situation, I'm going through that situation and that situation and that, and we start to try to juggle all these different thoughts and we get distracted. We get distracted and we can't reach our goals. We know we want a happy relationship, but we're distracted with everything under the sun. We know we want to build our business, but we're distracted with everything that's happening around us pertaining to other people that aren't going to help us reach our goals. And then we also get distracted with our own thoughts. We'll say all these things. Oh my God, so many things are going wrong. But we won't change the habits that are causing those things to go wrong. Like, for instance, I'll be open. I used to smoke weed. And in that time of me smoking weed, I would always essentially be depressed soon after. Like, the high would bring me up really up here, and then eventually I would come down and I would fall below my baseline and I'd feel worse than before I even started smoking. And then I see other people kind of falling into that same cycle where they're just going up below baseline and then further down, and they're not recognizing what's causing it. Me, on the other hand, I did my own research because I was saying to myself, I'm aware of myself. Like, I was fortunate enough to have a teacher when I was younger tell me, as I was getting older, to pay attention to the way my body feels. And I researched it. I was like, well, what does weed do to the body, and what does it do to the brain? more specifically. And if it turns out that it actually messes with this part of the brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala, I believe, is responsible for like processing and regulating your emotions. So then I started realizing, well, dang, smoking weed is actually hurting me. That's a habit that I need to let go of if I want my life to get better. I need to know how to process my emotions and deal with life without this thing, this vice, this substance. Does it make me feel good in the moment? Yeah. But at the end of the day, everything you have to use everything in moderation. And you have to be mindful of what it is that you are consuming in your life. And a lot of us don't even think about that to a solid extent. Right? Like, we'll consume all these different things like baddies, the shade room, things on social media that are just kind of like deteriorating our mind and making us think that these things are normal, instead of like bringing us up morally and righteously. We'll eat food without even questioning what's the content inside of that food. Like my favorite app right now is this thing called Yuka. And I use it to scan so many different things because you don't know what's inside of that thing. You could read the back, but you don't know what any of those substances or ingredients are. You don't know what Xanax gum is doing to you. You know, like, you don't know about any of that. You don't know if it's messing with your kidneys or messing with your liver or something like that. You don't know. You just look at the back. I can't read this. Oh, well, this tastes good. You know, like, that's majority of people. Like, that's a majority of people's lives every day. And it bogs them down, and they don't recognize how problematic that is. Because it keeps you in a mental state where now you cannot deal with anything. And it's slowing you up. Sorry, I gotta change the settings on my laptop. But I really had to hone in a little bit on this suffering and a little bit of the mental chatter in our mind. And this meant, like, the mind, like, I'll give you an analogy of what the mind is for anybody who doesn't know, right? For me, I feel like the mind is just like your own personal inner committee. It's going to make judgments. It's going to make assessments of situations. It's also going to tell you how to go about things over and over. And then sometimes it can focus on things that distracts you. You really have to understand that could be used to your own benefit or to your own detriment. And you have to take a step back and observe that committee and understand how your mind can work. Like what are the thoughts coming up, right? Like, what is it? Is it like, especially, all right, so I'll give you an example, right? You could be talking to a friend, and that friend could reach out to you and be like, hey, I was going through something. I called you, you didn't answer. It made me feel like you weren't there for me, and that was very hard to deal with, right? You could respond and feel completely uncomfortable with that and just be like, what are you talking about? That's not unfair. I was going through things too. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. Like, I was just focused on my own thing, yada, yada, yada. Right? Like, you could literally react that way. But if you take a step back and observe those thoughts, you could be like, okay, as this person is communicating to me, I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling, pretty defensive. And, I want to maintain my composure, and I don't want to let my emotions get the best of me. I want to focus on what it is that they're saying to me, and I want to validate their experience and also just understand that they're not here to attack me. They're just sharing how they feel. That's it. They're just sharing how they feel. And it's not a bad thing. That's something that you could do when you learn to observe your thoughts. And then you could also take the time to just understand, like, okay, well, let me practice being more mindful. Let me actually recognize when my nervous system is feeling a little deregulated. I think that's also important too. You have to know how to be grounded in moments that make you feel the most uncomfortable. And then lastly, you should know who you are in your most calmest, most centered version of yourself. You know, like there's so much things getting hit at us and pulling our attention in today's generation. We got ads left and right, Gmails left and right, social media left and right, relationship people or potential relationships or people just in general always trying to pull your attention. You go outside, there's an ad. Like you got your phone, you'll just be chilling, playing a video game. There's an ad that pops up at the end of your screen by the time you complete a level. Now you can't even just relax and enjoy the game. It's so bad that now they're charging you to get rid of ads. There's so many different media companies that want your attention. So I think it's important to value that attention and understand that you need to learn how to give it to yourself and figure out, okay, well, this is what I want to put my attention to, and this is who I am when nothing is influencing me. What does your most centered, calmest version of yourself look like? Like, for me, I had to spend 15 minutes a day meditating. And that was something that it was a habit I picked up from a program that was like really important to me. It's called the Marcy Lab School. Somebody ever wants to check that out. But after I graduated from that program, I took it with me. I took the meditating and I did it more than 15 minutes. I did it for 30. And then sometimes I'll do it for an hour. And I'll also remember like, yo, this is who I used to be before all these things took place, before I ever got older. I used to be very relaxed. I used to be very calm. I used to just play my video games and I used to just mind my business before all the chaos took place and life started to spiral out of control. I had to learn that there was no one around me willing to protect me anymore. I had to protect myself, and I had to make that conscious choice to limit certain things. You are so valuable. And you have to know that for yourself. You have to pay attention to your habits. You have to be your own critic. And I'm not saying in a way that is detrimental to you. You have to do it in a way that is constructive to who you are and who you want to be. Who is the person you want to be, and what habits does that person have? What boundaries does that person have? What limits does that person has? These are things that you should know. And you should find that out. So that way, whenever situations come up, you don't really give up. You don't really say, well, screw it, I'm just going to move this way. Or I'm just going to drop that. Or I'm going to let this thing defeat me. Anyways, that's my TED Talk. This is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, leave a like, drop a comment. I am going to be pushing out more videos such as this one, and I have a Calendly link and my YouTube, about my Instagram. I'll set everything up. If you want to book a one-on-one consultation with me, we could definitely do that. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to listen. I'd love to work through whatever it is that you may be going through. I'm here to encourage, motivate, and just get us there spiritually, and actually not let nothing defeat us, especially in this world of uncertainty. You have to remember that the only thing that is certain in this world is you and what you want to do. Later, y'all.